Being the son of John Lennon was never the fairy tale the world imagined, and for Julian Lennon, childhood unfolded as heartbreak in slow motion, marked by abandonment, silence, and a legacy that gave him everything except the one thing he needed most, a father. While the world celebrated Beatlemania and idolized John Lennon as a symbol of peace and love, Julian grew up watching his father disappear into a new life with Yoko Ono, leaving him and his mother Cynthia struggling for stability, recognition, and even basic acknowledgement. Fame followed Julian everywhere, yet warmth did not. Airport staff handed him stickers labeled John Lennon, a cruel reminder of a man who was famous to everyone except his own son. When John left without explanation, Julian didn't just lose a parent, he lost his sense of safety. Cynthia fought relentlessly to keep their world intact, working endlessly, selling possessions, and raising Julian in modest conditions while the public assumed he lived in luxury. At school, his last name made him a target, mocked and misunderstood by classmates and dismissed by teachers who believed privilege erased pain. As Julian grew older, the contrast became unbearable. The world praised John Lennon's messages of unity while Julian lived with the quiet reality of rejection, especially when John later became the devoted, affectionate father to Sean Lennon, the role Julian had always dreamed of. Interviews and headlines celebrated John's rebirth, but to Julian, they felt like salt in an open wound. Rumors that he was considered a mistake only deepened his sense of being unwanted, not out of jealousy, but invisibility. The relationship between father and son became defined by broken promises, rare gestures, and long silences that hardened into emotional armor. Then, just as Julian sensed a flicker of warmth and possible reconciliation, John Lennon was murdered, robbing him not only of a father, but of closure. While the world mourned a legend, Julian mourned the man he barely knew, replaying their final conversation as his last fragile connection. The pain deepened when John's were revealed that nearly everything, fortune, rights, legacy, had been left to Yoko Ono and Sean, leaving Julian with what felt like a token acknowledgement. The legal battle that followed was never about money, but dignity, proof that he mattered, yet it cast him publicly as bitter and greedy. Beneath it all was a long, silent war with Yoko Ono, the gatekeeper of John's legacy and, in Julian's eyes, the woman who replaced him. Years of resentment culminated in the words that shocked the world, "I utterly hated her," a sentence born not of rage alone, but of decades of displacement. Time, however, softened what anger could not. Through maturity and shared concern for Sean, the bitterness faded into something quieter, not forgiveness, but peace. The most healing relationship in Julian's life ultimately came from Sean himself, a brother raised in a different world yet shaped by the same contradictions, whose empathy allowed Julian to finally feel chosen. Freed from old wars, Julian turned inward, stepping out of the Lennon shadow through photography, writing, environmental work, and art that belonged to him alone. His story is not one of perfect reconciliation, but of survival, resilience, and choosing peace over pain. Julian Lennon's life reveals the hidden cost of fame and the courage required to build an identity when the world only sees your last name, reminding us that healing doesn't always mean forgiveness. Sometimes it simply means having the strength to keep going.